Greetings and welcome to the Thirsty Mage, the podcast enjoying a fine RPG with the rest of the community. Welcome to the podcast, I'm David Lloyd, and we've just started the first official RPG Club of the year with a shared playthrough of the recently released Dragon Quest III 2D HD remake. Starting January 9th, a bunch of folks in the Thirsty Mage Discord have begun playing at a pace of about 30 minutes a day, and with a plan finished sometime in March. If you've been thinking about playing Dragon Quest III, and I guarantee it's more fun when you play with friends and share in the experience. So come join us. There's no cost. There's no signups. There's nothing like that. All you have to do is pop into our Discord, join the channel, and just have some fun. Post some, you can post pictures on your trip. You can let us know of any tricks or tips that you've come across. But that's what everyone's doing. We're having a great time. We're probably a couple weeks in by the time you listen to this, but yeah, it's gonna be great with having so many people reaching the end credits of such an iconic RPG. But joining me for this episode is a man who's already beaten Dragon Quest III, so he'll be talking about some other RPGs tonight. It's Jordan Rudick.
Yeah, I was saying I'm just going to be lurking in the channel and seeing everyone else's experience. It's been fun to see like what kind of party configurations people have been rolling, because the whole time I was playing DQ3, I was thinking about the game's pretty brisk. Like, it's not a super long RPG, so I'm like, it'd be easy to just run through this once and then play it again with a different party. I went pretty kind of bog standard with my first one, so there's a couple classes I didn't touch at all. So it'd be fun to kind of go back and try the gadabout and try the martial artist and stuff like that. Even like thief and knight or warrior, whatever the physical class is, like I switched to them like halfway through, so I didn't play the whole experience. It might be nice to start with them and go to someone else. Like, it's a fun system for kind of experimenting. And between you and me, David, obviously it's so reminiscent of Final Fantasy 1, which we love. And I always think the same kind of thing with that game. Like, half of the experience is just the party that you choose or thinking about what party to choose. So it's kind of a similar thing, except in Dragon Quest 3, you do get to change your classes, and you probably should change your class at some point for the benefits there.
Yeah, a little more choice. I guess Final Fantasy 1, you get a class change, but it's locked into whoever you choose at the beginning. And it's funny, right, too, because I rarely use the black belt in Final Fantasy, but I went with the martial artist in this game. And it was funny. So I played the GameCube, or sorry, not GameCube, Game Boy Color version of Dragon Quest III, or at least I started it and got about 10 or 13 hours in or so a couple months ago now. And I had kind of went with your standard, I had my hero, and I had a warrior and a mage and a priest, I guess it is. And this time it was purely based on the fact that in that game I had Tifa as the warrior, and then when I was looking at the sprites of this game, I had actually chosen warrior, and then I went back and switched it to martial artist because I'm like, well,
that makes more sense.
Yeah, how can I do that to Tifa? I have to switch to the martial artist here, so and just kind of hope for the best. So after I had chosen my party, so I went with priest and mage after that. So I very predictably went with Final Fantasy characters too, because I got Vivi as my mage and I got Yuna as my priest. So yeah.
The fun thing is, that does seem like the typical starting class, or if for people who've played RPGs, you try to have a balance, right, of power and magic, and you do kind of get that with the hero, the warrior, and then the healer and the priest, and the more physical damaging mage. But I think that because the hero kind of learns everything, right? He can be a healer, he can use offensive magic and use physical attacks. Like, it does allow you to kind of play around with that more typical party configuration. And yeah, you can go like maybe a couple of martial artists and a thief or something like that. Or I don't know, I know we've always talked about in like Final Fantasy 1 terms, like, it's impossible to win the game with 4 ninjas. It just is. It's the hardest one.
It's not a fun way to win anyway.
Not at all. No, it's agonizing. And then one of the big challenges is like beating it with 4 white mages and stuff like that. Like, this is a little different, like, because the hero is, you can't change his class, his or her class. But I do like the idea of, just kind of going back, and I probably will dabble at some point this month or next, maybe before any big games come out, kind of head back in. And I'm just the enthusiasm in the Discord channel is kind of infectious, and I love that. And I hope we'll keep doing these RPG clubs just as a way to kind of keep more folks like participating and chatting and enjoying the games that we all have been talking about and playing. So yeah, it's great. I'm glad you kind of kickstarted this to begin the year. It's a really, really fantastic way to just start off another year of the Thirsty Mage.
Yeah, I'm hoping it works out with the games. Like it seems like a great way to guarantee that you finish 6 games in a year. If we're doing like one for every 2 months or whatever, but it also is good to, because we play so many RPGs. We're kind of used to rushing through them, so it's kind of nice to have like a kind of a forced pace, to a certain extent, where it's like, you know what, it makes you kind of take that time to kind of look around. And I know I'm going out a little bit ahead so that I can just kind of be the flag bearer, I guess, for everyone in the RPG, so that because you never want anyone to get too far ahead, because someone could quickly get, within a week, get 5-6 hours ahead. So you don't
For
want
sure.
spoilers getting out there. So I'm kind of getting ahead a bit and saying like, okay, for the first 2.5 hours, we don't want to talk about anything past this. And then, the next 2.5 hours for week 2, we'll want to stay here. So, when I get to a point where it feels like it's kind of nice near the end of the 2 hour point, then it's like, okay, maybe I'll look around, because you also want to give people time to kind of look around. And I was taking pictures of like Romeria and stuff like that, and just how beautifully designed that city is. And
Yeah, that's great.
like, it's just like you just find all these neat little things, and it gives you that time to kind of take stock of the game and savor it a bit. So it's I'm looking forward to it. I think like you said, there's a lot of enthusiasm early on. So hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
if it continues through the whole game, then I'll be looking forward to continuing this throughout the year. And I can even, like, looking at the release schedule for 2025, like, you can even see some instances where it's like, well, you know what, I can already see where this would be a good game this month, and this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to keep in mind as games get announced and released, like thinking about, oh, this would be a good RPG club game. Maybe we'll hold off on this one at launch and maybe give it a month or so just to, go on sale or whatever. Or
Yeah.
if we're in the middle of another RPG club game, just kind of schedule them out a little bit when we know a bit more about what's coming. But yeah, I mean, the enthusiasm is infectious. Yeah, so you definitely encourage folks to get in there. If you haven't joined the Discord, this is a great time to do that while we're all kind of working on this game together. And I popped in the chat today. I'm like, oh, everyone talking about it. The enthusiasm is kind of bubbling over and making me want to start again. So I wouldn't be surprised if I do, maybe even after this podcast recording, I'll just boot up the game again. At the very least, like, play around with the party configurations and see how that goes. But yeah, no, I mean, Dragon Quest III, fantastic. But we are here to talk about some other games. The first one I want to talk about today is a game that I assisted on the video review for NWR, and that's Ys Memoire, The Oath in Felghana. For the uninitiated, this is the third game in the Ys series. I think the very, very first version of it would be a Super Nintendo / Super Famicom game called Wanderers from Ys. And I had to look at some screens of that game, and it was fun to recognize like the 2D versions of games that are now, or of areas that are now recreated in 3D for this re-release. Ys Memoire, The Oath in Felghana, or maybe just The Oath in Felghana, was also the name of a PSP game. So I think that was the first kind of real remake of the game, a 3D remake. And then this is a remaster of that version. So I guess we are seeing
a remaster of a remake,
a remaster of a remake of a re-release, and yeah, just take a pick of your chosen word, and that's what it is. But yeah, I think that I can't speak to the upgrade over the PSP version. I never played that. I never played that one. I think there is a fondness for it for sure, as there is just a fondness in general for Ys games. If anyone played Ys Origins, which I think is a remake of the first game, or first or second game, this game has a very similar look and a very similar coat of paint on top of it, just like the Ys Origins game did. The combat is very fast paced. There's turbo options to speed it up, 1.5 times speed or 2 times speed. So if you want to do some grinding, it's easy to do that. In combat, which is kind of very, very action heavy, There's no like turn based or anything like that. There isn't really any real dodging or anything either. You're kind of just running or slashing, using one of your spells or jumping, and that's pretty much it. There's no like I don't think there's any blocking or really dashing or anything. So you're just getting in there. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to pick up. Um, the experience is probably in the 10 to 15 hour range too, so it's fairly accessible time wise, I think. Um, so Neil gave the game an 8. I think he did play the previous version on PSP and had a fondness for it for sure. I think my impressions are a little bit lighter than that. I'm more like a 7.5. And the reason I say that is I'm just so enamored with what they've done with the series lately with Ys 8, 9, and 10 that I find it harder to go back to these original games. And you know me, like I am a creature of nostalgia and habit for my turn-based games in particular. This being kind of not of that vein, and just again my first Ys game really being Ys 8. That's my kind of point of comparison with this, and so I see it as just not kind of living up to that standard. It's definitely something more just a lighter experience. It's very, very tough. Like I found the game regularly at boss encounters. I would have to drop the difficulty down, or just I would keep retrying the fight to the point where it would be like, "Hey, you want to drop the difficulty down and try it again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that." Like I can't be beating my head over the with the controller with my Switch trying to figure this out. But I still have a fun time with it. I think the combat's quite good. You pick up a few different elemental abilities as you go. Fire ability, which lets you just shoot a fireball. You can eventually pick up these gems to power up your magical abilities. And so the more gems you pick up, I think the more damage you do. But you can also then charge up your spells and do like a more powerful version. Like you can charge up the fire spell and then it leaves like a fire bomb behind that kind of explodes. So that's pretty cool. The game features a fair number of boss fights, and they all have kind of different strategies they have to employ, whether it's jumping and attacking, or switching to a particular magical spell, or just the timing and trying to figure that all out. How the mechanics of the bosses work. It's all like a little puzzle you have to solve, so that's kind of fun. There's one town, and you go there kind of at the end of every like mission, I guess. It's all kind of again not very story heavy, not super narratively dense. It is really kind of bullseye target square on the action. I think the story is fine. I think it does its job of kind of pushing you forward. Add all the adventure. Comes to a new town. Town has problems. You're solving those problems, right? Dogi's still there. There's a girl in the village that they seem to. Doge, I guess, has grown up in this village, and so he's he knows the townsfolk, and he goes off and does his own thing. Often, I guess, as he does, he's not really partying with you in this game. But yeah, it's a good game. Like I enjoyed it. I think that Ys fans should check it out for sure if they haven't played this one or haven't played any version of it. I think this is clearly the version to do that. It runs really well on Switch if you want to play it there. I believe it was released in most places. I do want to confirm that. I'm sure it's on Steam.
I could confirm that for you. I was reading it while you were talking. So it came out on Switch and PlayStation, like this new Ys Memoire version. So it's an upscaled version of, like you said, the Oath and Felghana. And what's funny enough is that they're using the PSP version to upscale. And I guess it's kind of weird because there's no Steam version of like this new Memoire, because there's already an Oath and Felghana game on Steam, like the PC version. I actually own that one. I tried playing it a while ago, but I wasn't quite in the mood, like you said. My most recent game, like I didn't play 10 before I tried Felghana, but I had played 8 and 9, and so going back to this was like it feels dated, compared to those games for sure. So I didn't get too far, but apparently the difference between the already released PC version and this new Memoir version is that the PC version doesn't have turbo mode, and it doesn't have the voice acting or the Japanese audio or the alternate portrait options that are in the new version. But apparently it looks better on Steam, because there's I'm just looking at RPG Site had a neat breakdown where I guess because they upscaled the PSP version, there's like tiling issues where and they use like a floor. There's like a tiled floor that they use for example, and you can see that the tiles don't match because they've upscaled
That's funny. That's funny.
at this different resolutions. So
Yeah.
the Steam version apparently looks better, but yeah, you miss out on those additional features that are added in the Memoire version.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I think that I if I was going to say like, okay, you want to start with an ease game, it's hard to say, that 8 isn't the best way forward, especially with the direction that the series is going. Like 8, 9, 10, whatever 11's going to be, it's going to be in that vein, right? They're, I guess,
Yeah.
slowly but surely kind of going back to these older games and re-releasing, remastering them, whatever that is. So you're going to get a chance to, get into those at some point anyways. Which is
Well,
which is
10's
nice.
getting that additional content too, right? Like it's
That's
getting
right, yeah.
yeah.
Which is a little frustrating, after
Yeah.
it's only been out for for how long, right? It's kind of weird that's the way they want to do that with these games. I don't know.
I guess I thought that, but then I think it's been out in Japan for like a year, so
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I wonder because it does seem like Falcom is getting closer to worldwide releases with games. Like I wonder if we're slowly but surely getting to that point where it is just going to be everything day and date, same time. Translation, voice acting, all that stuff's done. Around the world at the same time. I wonder when that's coming, or if that is the plan eventually.
yeah. Well, they have that new partnership with Gun Ho now. Like it looks like they're.
Right.
I don't know if they're breaking off from NISA or if it's just like we've got too much and they can't handle it, so we're gonna spread the wealth or whatever. But
Yeah.
that the new Trails remake is being distributed by Gun Ho. It's like they're doing all of the work on the translation and the port and everything. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see. Like we're gonna have another new company that's working on Trails games. So we'll see if there's like any kind of different feel to it with this new.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that there won't be, diehard fans, maybe even like us too, or that are like, oh, this is quite different, like
Yeah.
the sound, the words that just they don't have the same resonation or
Mm.
tone or something like that.
Well,
I'm
tone is my biggest concern. Like
yeah, yeah,
they're Trails games and even Ease games. Like they have a very uplifting tone to
for
everything,
sure.
like a very humorous, uplifting tone. So I'm hoping that doesn't get lost with the new team.
I mean, Trails in the Sky, I know is so near and dear to your heart. Like this, I'm almost concerned for you
Yeah,
that this is going to be just different in a way that kind
yeah.
of rubs you the wrong way.
Well, I couldn't believe like when you think of like all the work that Jessica Chavez would put into the translation of Trails, the
Yeah,
first like, and then you think like, oh, they're doing a new translation, and it's like, like
I
what?
know.
It was already perfect. Like, just leave it
Yeah,
alone. You know?
yeah. I mean, yeah, new time, new audience, new remake, new studio helping with the getting that off the ground with Gung Ho. I mean, I can see why. Like you're kind of maybe handing the reins for a particular set of remakes to them, and
Yeah,
Nisa will still have their hands full, I imagine. With they already have Trails for Daybreak 2 coming this year soon, like a month from now, from when we're recording in January here. So I my hope is that it's just okay. We have all these Trails games, and we're just going to have, instead of one studio helping us put these games out, we're going to have two or maybe three, and you just hope that the quality is maintained, right? And so I guess it remains to be seen if that comes to pass.
yeah,
But yeah, Ease Memoir is a fun game. I did enjoy playing it through. You just have to be prepared for like a game that feels like it released on the PSP. Like it's not. It looks, especially in terms of the visuals. What I really have to give flowers to is the music, which is so good. Like it is. I'm choosing like soundtracks to when I'm editing the video review for Neil, and I'm like, how do I pick? Like these songs are all just bangers. Like it's just that
yeah,
awesome rock music, that I think the E series is pretty well known for. And yeah, it just every track hits so well. So
It's
yeah,
all on Spotify too. It's amazing.
it's so great. Yeah,
It's
I keep
like
forgetting that too. Like I'm like I
like
do it
days
for
of
like a
music. Like it's
yeah.
incredible. Like
I'll listen to it for like a couple days, and then like I forget to like add some of the songs to my liked list, and then like a month goes by, I'm like, and then it pops up again in my recommended or whatever, like discovering songs kind of playlist. I'm
yeah.
like, oh right, like this is all here. Like, what am I doing?
I just love
Um,
it has the different versions too. Like you can get the original Trails in the Sky, or you can get like the Evo version of Trails in the Sky, or
yeah, that's sweet.
like it's just incredible that they have so many different versions of, and like it's
Hmm.
just all on there. Like it's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess with these two E's kind of remasters of remakes, I think I liked E's Origin a little bit better, even though it's kind of got more of like just this dungeon crawling focus of kind of going through this tower and this. I think there's a little bit more. There's the character switching there. You don't have that in this game. You're just playing as Adol, and he gets a few different abilities. Um, the second ability you get is a wind based kind of tornado hurricane type attack. And just gameplay wise, make like fun mechanic wise, that one feels really good because you can use it for traversal. So instead of crossing a long pit with like a dash or something like that, or a long jump, you can jump and then use that wind attack to kind of spin tornado yourself across the gap. Think something in the vein of like Dixie Kong from Donkey Kong Country 2. Like it's a little bit like that ability. You can also charge up that wind attack once you get one of those crystals to put inside the bracelet, and then you can go even further too. So um, yeah, just a game that's fun to play. Fun to play. It's not one that I think will stick with folks for too long. I don't think it leaves a super lasting impression, but it is fun while it lasts. And I am happy to see more of these older Ease games that they're not available necessarily on modern platforms, or I guess they are on Steam. But if you have a console and that's where you want to play it, then I think that's it's a worthwhile endeavor, especially if you want to know more about the older Ease games and you do like the newer ones. Seeing that contrast, I think, is if anything, give you more appreciation for what Ease 8, 9, and 10 have been doing, and that's just the direction or the way the franchise has evolved.
Yeah, it's always great having the old games available on modern platforms, just because, like you said, with people getting into 8, 9, and 10 and really loving it, and then it's a good way of like for people who maybe they just want something to kind of pass the time, I guess,
Yeah, yeah. No, it is.
between releases. So it's like, you know what, obviously, I'll just you're not going to spend 30-40 hours playing this game, but at least you can kind of get a taste of it, and you kind of get some more of the backstory, or
Mhm.
see where it came from, sort of thing.
Come on, how long was Ease 9? Like, that was 50, 60 plus, I felt like. That of
Yeah, it
the
was a long
3, I
one.
think that was the longest gotta be the longest one, right? Maybe 10 might be longer if you do all the side stuff on the islands, but, yeah, this is, the Ease Memoire game and then Ease Origins, like, they're much more, like, quicker experience for sure, and if that's what you're looking for in the moment, they're a little bit more budget friendly too, but still pretty fun and still gonna give you that fun action experience that these games have been, uh, doing pretty well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know you have another game to talk about, Jordan, but I'll
Mm.
just quickly chime in here with just a quick update on. So I'm getting into the nitty gritty, the final wave of Octopath Traveler. So
Yeah.
I've
David, you can have
gotten.
as long as you want to
Yeah,
talk about this
that's right.
fantastic game. The floor is yours, my friend.
Well, I'm enjoying it enough still, I guess. Again, seeing the backstories further than I did the first time around. Like, it's funny again. Like I said, Octopath Traveler 2 did so many things well that you could kind of. It's nice to see the genesis of a lot of where the strong stuff came from. So it's been a good fun. Um, I'm kind of leaning more towards. I think last time we talked in the last episode, I was talking about how I was sticking with. Well, I have to stick with Cirrus
Yeah, of
because
course.
that's who my
You
choice
gotta
was.
hit
But
those weak points.
yeah, and then I had Ophelia. I had to stick with Ophelia because she's my healer, and then I was really using Therian quite a bit, and then always kind of rotating a fourth one in. But now I've used Alvin, I think it is, the apothecary. I've
Hmm.
been I've been having so much fun with his between concocting elemental attacks to break characters quicker, and then amputating them with the axe attack. I've switched out Therian with the Apothecary now as my trio of sticking around
Nice.
long term. So yeah, I've completed all 3 chapters of every character, so I'm in the final run of doing chapter 4 for each one, and kind of looking forward to. I guess you never look forward to finishing a game that you're enjoying, but looking forward to completing it, I guess, and seeing how all the stories end up. Uh, it's there's I guess there's a few that I think Primrose. I would say Cirrus and Primrose, I think, might be the 2 most interesting storylines
Yeah.
of the 8. I
Yeah, I
would
like
probably,
Primrose a lot.
yeah. Ophelia's pretty good too, kind of to see where things are going. Although with the only problem I had with Primrose, though, I guess I don't want to get too spoilery, is that the person that's supposedly the villain in Primrose's uh, storyline kind of came out of nowhere, which is kind of a little annoying, I guess.
Mm.
I don't know, a little too. Um, what is it? The Deus Ex Machina, where it's like, oh,
Yes,
or this,
yes, that's fair.
where it's like, oh, well, here's this person that you never heard of, and they've been the mastermind from the very beginning, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, really? Like, but otherwise, it's hard to beat. The combat is still fun, and I think the first time around, one of the complaints I had, and I think other people had it too, is that you got to points where your party just didn't feel strong enough, and
Mhm.
the grinding had to kick in. And I guess this time around, whether it's just the way I'm playing or not, I've noticed I haven't had to grind as much. So I guess
Yeah,
that's
that I mean,
part of
that was my
part of it.
first time playing the game through as well. Like that, I heard the same complaint about people needing to grind, and it didn't happen for me that way. Um, and so, why do you think that's the case? Like, what do you think you did differently with this time through, or just compared to other people's experience that limited the amount of grinding you had to do?
I think part of it is just understanding how the battle system works better
Sure.
with like how you break characters, how you break the villains, and then kind of pound on them, sort of things. So after playing Octopath Traveler 2, like for I guess that was like an 80-hour game, I think,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
60 to 80. Um, just going through that and then realizing like, okay, like this is pretty close to the same. So
Mhm.
you get an idea of like, okay, I understand how things work here. So and I think also having the right characters, like, because I've really noticed that a lot of the fights can be easy or hard just depending on the different characters that you have in the party, because some don't
Yeah.
gel with others as well. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden you come
So it's
in and
your
you're
party,
like,
and then it's also the enemy too, right? Like if
yeah.
you have the right party for the right enemy.
Like I remember one fight where it was like there was only like 2 things that would break the enemy, and it was like wind and one particular weapon, and none of my characters had any of it. And I'm
Yeah,
like, well, this is going to be a long,
that's right.
annoying
Give me
fight.
a slog.
Like I wish I had picked up somebody, and that's actually how I ended up going with the apothecary for so much of the game. Now is I ran into that, like I had nothing, I had no way to break the character, and I got annoyed. So then that's when I realized, well, when you have the apothecary, you have like a very catch-all, like they literally have everything. Like they have
Yeah, that's
every
right.
element from like white and black magic to all the fire, water, whatever, electric. And then you also have like the axe and that sort of thing. So you pretty much cover all your bases when you have a character like that. So yeah, that's I guess it's just understanding the combat system makes a big difference getting through
Yeah,
the
I mean,
game.
if battles are going more smoothly and quickly, then if you are grinding, maybe inadvertently, like it doesn't feel like grinding, like
Yeah.
grinding with a capital G, right? It's more like I'm just playing the game through. I'm not slogging through. I'm not delayed by battles because I don't have the right party makeup or whatever. I think Hanit is better late game when you have captured a bunch of enemies. Especially more powerful ones, because of that issue you mentioned, like not having the right weapons in particular to hit an enemy weak point. Like if you've captured a bunch of creatures, like surely she'll have one that could hit it once or multiple times or something like that. So she just become useful later in the game. Like early in the game, she's not useful. Like Cyrus
No.
is super useful early game. I think he's less useful late game. So it's
Yeah.
just funny that the characters have their own arcs within the game, and this is probably better balanced in the sequel. They probably figured out a way to make the characters kind of all useful throughout the game. Whereas in this game, I think they have kind of arcs or sections where they're better or worse, and so you have to have the right tool for the right job, I guess, kind of thing. More so in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how things are going. I still won't lose that ability to make fun of the dialogue because
that's fair. That's fair.
You can't get rid of the things you love. So I can change my tune on the game overall. I'll probably add it to my top 100 list now. It'll probably fall in there somewhere, but
that's I think that's the biggest victory lap I can take. you go from just thoroughly trashing the game for years since its release, and now it's like, oh, it's gonna be part of my top 100. So I'll take that.
It's off my poop list.
Yeah. Now I just need to get it off Casey's, and we'll be set.
These are hard not to crack.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember what Paige's feelings are about the game. If they're, I don't think
I don't remember.
I don't know if she hates it. I think I only remember her maybe piling on the displeasure of the game with you and Casey.
But that's just fun, so you can't really.
Yeah, I know that's totally fair. Yeah,
I don't remember if she played the second one either. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll have to ask next time.
Yeah. See if it's on her top 100 list. One of them at least.
Yeah.
So we have one more game to talk about. This is one we chatted about a little bit earlier, just in terms of plans to get into it, and I kind of I guess just couldn't wait. I'm like we were talking about playing it on Steam Deck, playing it all together kind of at the same time, and best laid plans, and that's okay. I actually found out that I don't know that the game is great on Steam Deck. It's definitely not optimized for it, and so you probably have to do some workarounds to get it to work well. I was reading about downloading controller patches or whatever. But I'm talking about DragonAge Origins now. So we had chatted a little bit about all playing that on Steam Deck or something as we in that episode where you guys were selling me on the Steam Deck. You sold me on it anyways, and I couldn't wait, or I didn't want to bother with figuring out how to play it on Steam Deck when I realized I already have it on Xbox. So I don't know if it's just because it's on Game Pass. That's probably the case. But I know I played it on 360 once upon a time. I definitely had the Ultimate Edition. But I think I'm just playing it now through EA Access / Game Pass, something like that. It was on my console. I don't even remember if I downloaded it.
EA is still available through the Ultimate Game Pass, isn't it?
I think that's the idea,
that's
right?
Probably how you got it.
I see these sports games there all the time. And it didn't clue into me that, of course, that they're also going to have stuff, some BioWare stuff too. DragonAge Origins Ultimate Edition is on Game Pass, I believe, and so that's where I ended up playing it. I have been playing it. So I am about, I want to say 10 to 12 hours in. The game is not super long. I think it's in the 20 to 25 hour range, actually. Maybe longer if you do all the side stuff, of which I don't think there's a ton of side stuff. I went with a warrior this time. I never play warrior. I kind of regret playing warrior. But the hilarious thing is, once you have a mage in your party, you can just switch to playing the mage. So that's what I do. I just switch to playing as Morrigan. Just kind of enjoy using her abilities and leveling her up, and I kind of just auto level the other characters. I'm kind of speedrunning the game, kind of not. I'm more just playing it with a devil may care kind of attitude. So whatever happens. If it's a particular outcome I don't like, I don't save scum. I just okay, that's my playthrough. That's what's going to happen. And what I realized or reminded about this game is that you have no idea what is going to happen, what is around the corner, what decision is going to lead to what outcome. That saying the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time will lead to the untimely death of a party member. The game is kind of nuts, and I love it. It's so chaotic, actually.
Well, you could lose party members, right?
You do. I killed a party member last night.
Yeah, I remember doing that by accident once.
It was. I'm like, oh no, we're all on the same side. But I said one wrong thing, and they're like, oh, you're against me now. I'm like, hold on,
Yeah.
let me walk that back. And I can't because there's no dialogue option. There's no dialogue option in the tree to walk it back. I can only turn the knife a little bit, deeper or twist the knife a little bit deeper. But yeah, I'm that this is the magic of Dragon Age Origins is that what you say and your choices, they really do matter. Like they have noticeable, interesting, engaging consequences. And this is just, I wouldn't say this is the case for, at least to this extent, of any other Dragon Age game that came out after this. Um, like I think of Dragon Age 2, and it probably has some interesting decisions that I can't really think about, but everyone was so kind of.
That was still a more linear
It was, yeah.
experience, though. Like, I think they had like a story in mind where this seems more open ended.
They didn't even really have much of an open world until like the second half of that game, I believe. Whereas like this game's
Yeah.
pretty open from the beginning. Like you kind of go and do the missions in whatever order you want to. And the order you do the missions and who you recruit in that order as well, all that matters, right? Because you'll have characters be like, "Oh, have you met so and so?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're in my party, but they're not with me." And
Yeah, I was
so
gonna say, because some of them don't get along with each other.
exactly, that's right.
Yeah.
So even the dialogue, even when you're traveling between the characters, is great. Like I'll stop or I'll slow down and like turn around so I can read the subtitles of the characters talking behind me.
Yeah.
Like I've got I got Stan really early, the Canary. He's very like stoic and serious, and he's very like this is the way we do things. Like might is right kind of guy. And you have like some really great banter between him and Morrigan about like how like elves living in the Kunari territory, and it's just. Or I just recruited Zevran, who is a rogue, and he's very kind of playful. And yeah, he's always kind of making fun of other people in the party too. Alistair, like the writing is just superb in this game. Like it's so interesting, it's so engaging. I like I said, I'm just stopping to kind of smell the roses so frequently in this game. And as much as the game, I'm kind of speed running through the missions and the dungeons. Whenever people are talking or there's an opportunity for like dialogue to happen or just kind of naturally, I just kind of let it play out, and it's very, very fun. Um, I I was also reminded of how much I hate the Circle of Magi mission. It's so cumbersome. It's so long and tedious. I hate it. I was like, oh, I remember now why I always save this for last because it's the worst one. And so in that one, your party of 4 is split up, and you're taken to like this dream world basically. And your main party member, and it's not, you can't obviously can't switch roles or classes, right? You're stuck with that one that you have there unless you unlock some new classes. Um, so I've got a warrior, and I have to do this warrior who I haven't really been paying attention to for a while. Got to re-equip them and move all their moves to the hotkey buttons and whatever. But the premise of this, it's called the Fade, which is kind of like a dream-like world where the demons live, basically. The premise is that you have to talk to you fight these bosses, these mini bosses, and then you talk to someone there, and they give you a transformation, basically like a spell that lets you transform into a different creature. So first you get mouse, and then you can go in the mouse holes that you see, and the mouse holes kind of like teleport you around the map. And then you get like a spirit or some other kind of demon, and the demon can see hidden objects, and so that helps you unlock more paths. And then you get this Burning Man transformation, so you can walk through fire.
Yeah.
And then there's one more. You got to get like a golem transformation to open like doors that are too heavy. And it's so like da 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 da. And I man, it's the worst. It really is bad. It's
Yeah,
just
no, I agree.
Do you remember? Did you remember this part? Like
I just remember it being irritating.
Yeah. Like
Is this over yet?
I'd forgotten how bad it is. I thought it was bad. It's just the worst. I was like, oh man, I like seriously contemplated like maybe I'll just stop here, and I won't keep playing. But I'm glad I pushed through because I think the end of it has some interesting decisions, and there really is a massive, massive payoff at the end of these missions, story wise and decision wise. You get to make some really, really cool choices. The mission I did before this, so the first one I did, I went to the just for those who haven't played it, the idea is that you are a Grey Warden recruit. And the Grey Wardens at the beginning of the game, the prologue, are kind of like slaughtered by the Darkspawn, who are like the primary enemy of the game, or one of the primary enemies. and then it's kind of on your shoulders to build up the army again. And this is a frequent Dragon Age kind of trope, I guess, is to start off as one man or woman and then build up your army until you can take on the big bad. So you have to recruit, like in almost Tolkien-ish fashion. You have to recruit the elves and the dwarves and the humans, basically, right? So I started with the elves, and so I go to this elvish village, and their problem is that there's a werewolf curse, and so you see that it's going to be elves versus werewolves, and so most of the enemies you fight are werewolves, and then you go into this temple and you fight skeletons and stuff. When you get to the end of this mission, the choice is basically about how do we reverse the curse on the elves that's kind of turning them into werewolves, or killing some of them, turning them, whatever. And you realize that you learn that it's not just the elves that are being cursed. The werewolves also feel it as a curse. Like, they don't want to be werewolves, right? It's it's not good for anybody, basically. And so you have like a leader of each faction, like a leader of the elves and a leader of the werewolves, and you kind of listen to both of them. And I guess this is a spoiler for the end of this quest line. If people want to just play through the game fresh, don't listen to the next 30 to 60 seconds. But basically, you choose one or the other, and then that's the one you recruit for the end of the game. So if you side with the elves, you'll fight the werewolves. Elves will join you at the end of Dragon Age for the final battle. If you side with the werewolves, vice versa, right? I got it so that I was able to basically win the elves to my side, but also cure the werewolves of their curse and cure the elves of their curse. So I think it's like the ultimate victory, where basically everybody's happy. The funny thing is, to make everybody happy, the leaders of the two factions have to be convinced to sacrifice themselves. So it's this really poignant moment where, two characters who hate each other, basically, or want to kill each other, or want to the other worst person to fail, will both give in, I guess, compromise, and just allow themselves to be absorbed or destroyed in order to break this curse. It's a really, really wonderful moment. And I'd forgotten about the resolution of this quest line, and I guess for without any preparation or guides or anything to achieve that ending to it, I was so chuffed. I was so happy. I'm like, this is awesome. This is why I love this game, and why I still have a fondness for it, even though I don't recall all of the memories of doing things like this before. I don't know if I ever achieved this ending before, or this outcome, I should say. But to get it without kind of really thinking about it too much beforehand, or prepping or whatever, really, really satisfying. I don't know if, Dave, do you remember a quest line like this and how it might have gone for you?
I remember, like, I don't remember any specifics. It's been so long, but I remember there being like there was always like two ways that things could go, but then there would always be a third way that you could that's probably the best way, but it would always be way more work.
Yeah, it's hard to get that,
like,
or you have to be,
like, you have to earn it, like,
you do,
like,
yeah.
You have to figure it out. You have to really put your mind to it.
Yeah, it is almost a dialogue puzzle sometimes. Like, you have to choose like the right things to say, or you really do have
the
to
right
contemplate
order,
it.
or there's like some other thing that you had to have done before you started this or whatever.
Yeah,
that
you kind of prime or prep the situation ahead of
Yeah.
time, and you don't even know what that would be necessarily all the time.
Yeah, that's why I love games like this and like Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff, where it's like there's no right or wrong. There sometimes there's like an obvious one, or sometimes there's like an optimal way to do a quest. But at the end of the day, like, you're the whole point of it is not to have like the best ending or whatever. It's like to have a ending, and then you can play it again and get a different, and
That's right.
Yeah, it's
There's
funny.
a lot of replay value here, right? There really is.
Oh yeah. I remember replaying it a few times back in the day. Like,
yeah, me too. Even before I was doing kind of research on the game and playing it and taking down notes and stuff like that. Like, I just remember going through it originally, and then when the Ultimate Edition came out, like playing the DLC, going through the base game again, because I think some of the base game choices might even carry over to. I think some of them carried over to the second game, where if you had certain outcomes of quests, you would see like this character would show up, or they would reference that event. I'm like, oh, for this to happen in the 360 era on console. I'm like, that's really cool, right? To think that they were capable of carrying things forward. Do you remember there was a website where you could input your decisions, and then you could? I think this was the
Yeah,
PS3 version might have used that or something because it didn't have a previous game or something, you know?
I almost think it was set up for people who, because around that time, because I remember I played Origins on PS3, but then like Xbox 360 was getting really popular, and I think a lot of, in particular, I think like Dragon Age, like EA fans, like Dragon Age and Mass Effect,
Yeah.
they were getting the Xbox versions because they seemed to play better, and I
Well,
think
Mass Effect never even came to PlayStation. That was part of it too, I
yeah.
think, right? It only got, it was only from the second game forward that it came to both consoles, which is kind of crazy too.
Yeah, because I almost think I played Dragon Age 2 on the Xbox 360 because I remember that website
I'm
going in
sure I
and
did.
being like,
Yeah.
yeah, you put in your things and then it would send it to the so that you could, because obviously you're not, if you played Origins on PS3 and then
Yeah.
you're playing
Yeah.
it on the Xbox, you're not
You
going to
remember it
get
was like
that
a comic
carryover.
book or something like that, like an online comic book, and you would
Yeah.
choose kind of the path so that it would, I guess it would upload it to your console or whatever, and then that would be that's your character history or your
I
the
almost
world,
feel
the
like
history of the
seeing a
world.
couple of things in there going like, thinking like, oh, I could have done that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I remember like, oh, that was an option. I didn't even
Yeah.
think about that. Yeah, yeah. Which
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things that kind of prompted me to go back and be like, okay, I want to see how you actually get to that point, you know. And I probably wasn't looking at too many guides back then either. Like
Mm.
earlier days of the internet, just not being as savvy and really not caring as much either. Being more like, I just want to play the games and just see what happens, you know. Um, but yeah, I
It's too bad that that is such a crazy moment in time for like
totally.
BioWare just was on the ball for like
Oh
between
man,
Mass
yeah.
Effect and Dragon Age. Like it's funny, I was actually reading something today about I guess I don't know who it was, but one of the writers during that time period, I guess, had played Veilguard,
Mm.
and their opinion was like, man, this is condescending.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that was the
it's so
takeaway.
different. It really is, and I do have to point this out because this is worth saying. The combat, I don't like the combat in Dragon Age Origin. I think it's bad. I think it tries to be, it's CRPG ish, it's turn based ish, but not. I don't. To me, not a satisfying way. It was probably fine back then. Um, but now you think about the combat of games we've played in the last few years, like Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then again the latest Dragon Age game, Veilguard, which has a very very fun combat. But combat is just in these types of games, like kind of actiony, kind of turn based, has become so much more sophisticated and engaging. To go back to that element is I guess disheartening or like it really kind of opens your eyes like, oh, we thought this was good, look how good
Yeah.
it is now, like that kind of thing. And the yeah, I think in these kind of action or turn-based hybrid type games you get more of that, like, oh, look how far we've come. Whereas like straight turn-based, like you again, you can go Dragon Quest 3 HD2D like that, it's the same combat system as the original game basically, right? They haven't really changed much there at all. Even some of the Final Fantasy games, like maybe they tweak it a little bit. You do like the ATB system and stuff, but it's still kind of basically turn-based combat. But yeah, Dragon Age, like it just it's so Dragon Age Origins, I should say, it's so stiff. The characters kind of just sit there. You can kind of cancel actions. Like you might be in the middle of a sword swipe, and then if you press an ability, it'll cancel the sword swipe, and then you'll wind up for your ability, so you miss out on an attack basically. um it's just annoying, and maybe it's playing the physical classes is just not as fun in that game. So when I do switch to Morrigan and I can kind of spam her spells a little bit more, that is fun. um Even watching the spells channel, like I've got like this like thunderstorm kind of ability on her, watching it channel and then potentially being interrupted by an ogre or some other enemy attacking you. It's not fun, to have an
Yeah.
ability interrupted. And I guess that
Yeah.
is like CRPG kind of stuff, as you see those trappings built into this game. So my point is, it was funny to hear people say like, "Oh, the combat's so different now. Like, what I want to go back to." Do you really want to go back to this? I don't know.
No.
I certainly don't. I think the combat's a
Yeah.
lot better now. But I do, yeah. The storytelling, world building, writing, man, it's night and day. It really is. It's so much better in Origins.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember like even going from like Origins to 2 was just like night and day to a certain extent,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
um Yeah, I don't know, like whoever made the Mass Effect and Origins, my hat's off to them because they know how to write stories. Like it was, I
Hmm.
just remember in that era that was it. Like that was the pinnacle. It
They were
was
on top, right? Like it was
yeah,
BioWare was, yeah, they were so
they're just
well
nailing
regarded.
everything.
They were
Yeah,
hitting it out of the park, you know. And the funny thing is, even Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, Dragon Age 2, I think this review impressions were good, like at like 80s, like early low 80s.
yeah.
And I think Inquisition reviewed very well. I think
Oh
people
yeah, I
really
think it
liked
did.
it,
I
right?
think it was people were happy. It was kind of like a. I think it was more of an amalgamation of the two, but it was kind of
Yeah.
like a little bit of going back to Origins, but still trying to keep it modern, sort of thing.
Yeah, and in response to 2 being more linear, you had 3, which is so open, right? Or
Yeah,
maybe too open in a way. And really, it's Origins that I think of the 4 just nailed that. Like it's the
yeah,
world map is not big. Um, Eventually, like new spots open up on the map that you can visit, but there's still never that many.
yeah.
There's kind
And
of
some
random
spots
encounters
go
that pop
away.
up.
Like I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was how clever that was. That original area that you end up at the beginning of the game, and then the dark spawn just take it over, and you're
that's
like, oh
right.
my god,
Yeah,
it's
it
gone.
does. Yeah, for a game of that day, that day and age to do things like that again just felt very ahead of its time, you know. And now
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of games do like that scorched earth kind of thing.
yeah,
um yeah, so combat not good. Very much like I'm just like sometimes I'll switch to casual difficulty from normal. I'm like I don't care about this, like let's just get through. I want to see what the end of this quest line is, you know.
yeah.
So I'm at of the like the 4 main missions, I'm at the third one, the Arl of Redcliffe, where um basically their kid is possessed by a demon. And so
Yeah.
I think you have to like find a way to solve that. And again, there's just different ways to go about this, right? Like you can say, okay, the mother wants to sacrifice herself, so you can let her do that. There's this blood mage that you free from a prison, and he's like kind of guiding you, and people are like, why did you let him out? I'm like, we need some advice here. Like it makes sense. It made sense. And the hilarious thing is when you any choice you make, you see like your party members like response to it, not just like what they say, but like their score goes down. Like
Yeah,
Stan approves +2,
yeah.
Morrigan disapproves -5, and it's always Morrigan disapproves. She hates everything you do. Like it's so hard to make her happy. I don't know
Oh yeah.
how I ever played a game, a story with her, or a playthrough with her, and had the opportunity to like romance her, because she's such a stick in the mud. Everything, unless you're like she's this real scorched earth character. She just wants to like to say F everybody. Just we do only what we want to do. Everyone else be damned. Like it's so funny how hard it is to make her happy or to win her approval in the game. Like I feel like every choice I make, she it's -5, -3 from Morgan.
I know it's fun playing like a Morgan approves version of the game though, like going through and
I'm
doing all
sure it
those.
is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like
it's
full
pretty fun.
renegade, right?
Oh yeah, like total, like just like no one but Morgan's gonna like me at the end of this run.
I think that's exactly it. I think no one else in the party wants the decisions that she makes. What's really great is when you have her and Alistair in the party, because they're polar opposites, right?
Oh yeah.
So it'll basically whatever the score goes up for one, it'll go down the other one. And even this their banter, like when you're
I was
about
gonna
to
say I
make a
love the
choice,
chirps.
it's great. Yeah, it's really really good. Just how like against each other they are, but they're on the same team. It's so funny. They just have like these party members are so memorable. They have so much character and life to them. Um, I've just fallen in love with all of them over again. Um, and then yeah, just to see some of them like leave, or you can tell them to leave, or they just die. I'm just like blown away by this game again. Like it's really fun to pick it back up again and just be reminded of old times, and how like, you know, as a university student or a high school student first getting into this game, and just being able to put like, we talked about this, like the 3 4 5 hour sessions in where you're just not stopping. Like I miss those days, and I'm reminded of them getting back to it now.
Yeah, well, and it reminds me of like games that I love where it's like so character driven, where like
Yeah, it is.
the story. Sometimes you play a game where the story maybe's got some holes or it is a little bit of nonsense, but the characters are so well developed that the characters are the stories. Like it doesn't even
Yeah.
matter that everything else is ridiculous.
It's really just like it's not like a whole storyline that makes this game. It's just these big events that take place, right? Where you're thrust into the center, and you have to be like the moral compass, and you kind of just pick which way it's going to go, right? Like, is it who are you choosing to sacrifice or throw under the bus here, or do you want to be the hero, or do you want to be like a little bit on the side and kind of just helping in a more minor way? Like, how do you want to? You really are role playing here, and I think
Yeah.
that's what makes this game so great. Is it really embodies that idea of being the focal point, being the decision making person, and that's why like I really felt compelled. This was going to be when I was doing my master's degree, before I even started working on a thesis or anything. Like, I knew Dragon Age was going to be a game I was going to write a paper on for one of my classes. I'm like, this is a perfect example of how role playing games just situate you in this decision making spot. Um, and man, some of these decisions are agonizing. Like, they really are.
Yeah.
So many like that scene that makes sense. I could do this. That also makes sense. Like, it's not always black and white about this game too, which is really cool. So
Well, then you find out near the end of the game, like, man, I wish that decision I had made like 30 hours ago, I had made it,
yeah,
had gone in a different direction, because now I'm regretting it, or I'm
exactly.
happy I made that decision because this worked out or whatever.
That's
Like, there's
right.
yeah,
You
you're
do.
just
You
living in
are
regret for half the game.
exactly. Yeah, you are reminded. The game does throw it in your face, like, you did this. Like, this is your handiwork, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's not a kind of set it and forget it kind of thing. Like, you make a choice, and then it comes up again. And the idea that it could come up in sequels too is just a really really cool idea. Not that I plan to play Dragon Age 2.
I was
I
gonna say it's
may
good. It's gonna do a four shot.
Right? Yeah. I think I would skip 2 potentially and play Inquisition again, because I think my feelings on 2 are pretty settled, but I think my impressions or how I feel about Inquisition could change. I think I could like that game maybe more than I do. Just
Yeah,
having played so many other games since.
I'm with you there. It's been so long that like I've forgotten most of Inquisition, so it's almost like
Yeah, me
just a
too.
refresh. Like, I just kind of want to see what, like, does my memory of it like have I replaced it with other games?
Mhm.
Am I remembering it wrong, sort of thing? Like, because
That's what I think too.
you
Because
know,
why does everyone else love this game more than I do? Like, that seems weird, right?
yeah,
Because yeah. Um, but I was gonna say, yeah, like Inquisition, like I don't know where you played. I played on PS3, and then it would come out for PS4 at the same around the same time, or maybe a year later or something. And I don't
yeah. I'm
think I
pretty
ever
sure I
played
got
the
the
upgrade.
Xbox version.
Oh, you did? Okay, okay.
I'm pretty sure.
You might have been okay then. But yeah, I know that there was probably a better upgraded version of the game that came out close to the release of the first one. But I was like, oh no, I have to play this game when it comes out. Like, I'm like such a huge fan of the series, so I did that. But um, I was going to say one more thing about Origins. So if you are playing on Game Pass or an Xbox Series S or X, I'm not sure which one. I'm on an X. Um, but it does have an upgrade. It does have some enhancements. So it is 60 frames per second, I believe. Um, the character models don't look great. Just they still look like they're 360 counterparts. But the game just runs really well. The load times are negligible. There's some kind of characters kind of hitching in and out a little bit as the game maybe tries to keep up with everything that's happening. But it runs quite well. So it is a welcome upgrade over how the 360 version, or maybe if you played it elsewhere on PC or something, would have performed. It does run quite well. So it's fun to see that element as well that I hadn't really anticipated, of going back to older games on Game Pass, being reminded that, oh yeah, some of these games they actually got specific patches or upgrades to them in kind of, I guess, being made playable on the future console or the modern consoles. So
Yeah,
that's kind of cool as well.
and it says it's still unsupported on Steam Deck, so I guess they haven't
Yeah.
figured out the issues yet.
So yeah, which is a shame. And I'm wondering if that's the same, if that's the case for Inquisition, if maybe that would be the game to play on Steam Deck. And was it you? You were also telling me about you can play Game Pass games on Steam Deck too, right? Like, it's
Oh
not
yeah, like
too hard to do that workaround.
no, like it's easy to get the streaming version of
Yeah.
Game Pass on there, and then it just picks up like with Reload. I could play Reload on on my X, and
Yeah, that's right.
then I could walk over to the couch, turn my Steam on, and then it would pick up from the last save that I did, like,
Yeah, it's
because
very
it's all
cool.
in the cloud, right? So
Yeah, maybe that's something I'll try with Inquisition when I get there. But yeah, still playing
no,
Origins. Definitely,
Inquisition is unsupported as well.
is it okay?
I think there's a problem with EA games on Steam Deck.
Ah, I see. Okay, so that
Yeah,
would be one to stream then via the Xbox onto
yeah,
Steam. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if there's a fairly easy workaround, that's fine. I don't mind that. But I am excited to finish Origins. Going to see how it wraps up. I do think the end of the game may not be like it's not. I don't think it's the best part. I think that it's the end of these kind of quest lines, these major quest lines that you do that all kind of culminate in the finale that really sell it.
yeah,
I'll remind about one more thing that I think is very cool about this game is that there's basically 6 different prologues to it, and I'm pretty sure the prologue I did this time I didn't play before, or I certainly didn't remember it before. But you can play as a dwarf, and you can be like basically an upper class or a lower class one. You can play as a mage. You can play as an elf, either like a forest kind of elf or a city elf. And the city elf is a really interesting one because you're kind of like a very lower class, a slave caste kind of type of character. You can play as a noble born human, or I believe like kind of just a middle class or lower class human as well. So it's very cool that how you start the game. It'll have nods to it later too. Like characters will be like, "Oh, aren't you from here? Or do you know this person or something like that?" Or you'll bring up in conversation like, "No, I'm the son of a Terran. I'm the son of like a lord. You know, like you should address me as sir." It's so funny. I told that to a guy today. I told it to a knight. I'm like, "No, you got to call me this." Like, you could do like the first name basis kind of thing, and I'm like, "You will address me as sir. We're not going any further than that,
yeah,
or any lower than that." So that was just a kind of a funny thing. So I just for anyone who's never played the game before, the fact that you can start off with 6 different prologues is really neat. You do get that sense of like, oh, that you have created a character with a storyline, a background. And again, for something in the 360 era to do something cool like that on consoles was really neat.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Cool.
think that'll do us for Dragon Age Origins and probably the episode. We were kicking around an idea about maybe doing a top 25 games of the last 25 years. Um, so if people have suggestions for that are listening, throw them in the Discord. We'd love to see if they make the list. I was thinking, David, we could maybe do like a drafting kind of style, like you pick one, I pick one, and just see where we get with our 25, and maybe we get a couple of vetoes where we can knock a couple off the list. But I think it'd be a fun way to kind of, again, sort of semi keep ringing in the new year. We've got the game club, the RPG game club with Dragon Quest III. But yeah, just a time for kind of doing some new and fun, exciting things. I think would be another good way to keep 2025 rolling here, especially before we
Yep.
get to like the major releases, right?
Yeah, because they'll start coming, especially when Switch 2 gets released. And
Exactly. Yeah, I'd imagine that announcement is probably imminent. Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining us for an episode where we talked about E's Memoire, The Oath in Felghana. David shared a few more impressions of Octopath Traveler, the first game as he gets near the end there. And yeah, my thoughts on revisiting Dragon Age Origins and just how enamored I am with the game in a way that I certainly was back when it came out so many years ago. If anyone wants to, get in touch with us, you can email David at thethirstymage.com. But like I said, Discord is a great way to join the community, join the fun things that we're doing, the great conversations and great people. Most of all, I think is the best reason to hop in there. Thirsty Mage Discord. But that's it for this week. Thanks again for everybody for joining, for listening, and we'll be back soon with more video game talk on the Thirsty Mage. Bye for now.